Prime Minister Mark Carney has now been in the top job for a few days amid a trade war with the United States. And today, Carney gave his impression of what he thinks U.S. President Donald Trump wants from Canada.
He wants to end the fentanyl crisis in the United States. I respect that. He wants good, high-paying jobs in America. He wants more investment in America. He wants repatriation of many American industries and firms to the United States. So, and I fully respect that. I think he will respect that as Prime Minister of Canada, I want to end the fentanyl crisis in Canada. I want to grow good, high-paying jobs in Canada.
Mark Carney speaking in Canada's far north, but how's the trade war being felt south of our border? Well, today, one U.S. senator gathered Canadian and American business people to discuss the impacts of the ongoing trade war. Peter Welch is a U.S. senator from Vermont. We've had him on the show before, and he joins me again now. Senator, welcome back to the program. It's good to see you again, sir.
Thank you.
You had a roundtable gathering today to discuss this. What are you hearing from American business leaders about what's happening between our two countries?
Well, what was great about a roundtable, we were in Newport, right close to the border, and I was there with Madame Bibeau, and Canadian businesses and U.S. businesses, primarily Vermont businesses. And here's the message. Vermont loves Canada, all right? Canada loves Vermont. And Vermont is one of 34 states where our trading relationship is the most with Canada than any other country. And the tariffs, in short, will just wreck long-standing relationships and create very, very difficult business circumstances for our family businesses, our generational businesses on both sides of the border. So it was nothing good to say about these tariffs, particularly when the relationship that we've had, that we've nurtured for generations of mutual trust, of mutual cooperation, is now being subject to a tariff policy where the tariff policy is chaotically implemented, on again, off again, and where the threat of the 25% tariffs is going to be an existential challenge for many of our businesses. So that was the news from both sides of the border.
You said specifically this is very destructive for the Vermont economy. I mean, what are you seeing in your state, Senator, in terms of what's being hit and how bad?
Well, first of all, agriculture is, we import a lot of our fertilizer, a lot of our grain. So every farmer is going to get hammered with a 25% tariff. Second, our electricity bills, we depend on Canada for a lot of our energy. Hydro-Quebec provides a lot of energy, hundreds of millions of dollars worth. Home heating fuel for the northern part of our state comes from Canada. And gasoline, we could have 40-cent per gallon increase in the cost of gasoline. Steel products, maple products that are manufactured in Canada, we import in Vermont. So it's going to really be a kick in the shins to our maple industry. So those are all the economic facts. But here's something else that really was quite poignant for me. And Madame Bibeau was the most eloquent spokesperson of this. It's an emotional impact. We have had cross-border interaction from our kids playing hockey to our businesses working with each other. And there's a relationship of trust, mutual respect, and mutual admiration. And that trust is being eroded. Yeah. And that's heartbreaking. And it's unnecessary because so much of what makes life worth living and so much of what makes us able to face the headwinds of whatever challenges are there is trust. And that's being eroded.
Yeah, and Marie-Claude Bibeau, former agriculture minister, she knows well the cross-border ties. And we are seeing, my colleague J.P. Tasker had a story today about Canadians going to visit the United States. It's down to like sort of COVID levels, right? Just because of what's happening here. And here is April 2nd coming at us, Senator, and we're getting more clarity from the United States now that Donald Trump is expected to impose reciprocal tariffs. This is a global tariff policy where they're going to hit people with what they think is the unfair trade practices of those countries and then negotiate it down from there. I mean, I can't tell if that's a hopeful sign or if that's a more difficult sign. How do you see it?
I'm not confident at all because I think Trump has an agenda that is not about fentanyl. I mean, I just heard the Prime Minister talk about the mutual desire to deal with fentanyl. Canada is our ally on that. And there's a subtext here where the president has been incredibly insulting to Canada, the 51st state, calling former Prime Minister Trudeau the governor. And that's the meaning. But unfortunately, what Madame Bibeau made very clear is the Canadians understandably take that very seriously. And what I'm trying to convey is that may be the Trump policy, but the United States senators along the border do not agree with that. I mean, Canada, we respect as an independent, powerful, and wonderful state with whom we want to continue having very good relations.
Right. An independent and powerful state as a sovereign state, not as the 51st state. Just to clarify, just to make sure you hadn't switched sides on this argument, Senator. But you know, on that, I mean, I know you respect the sovereignty of Canada, but you know, President Trump continues to put the political leadership here in a tough spot, and the allies in Europe who, you know, Canadians want to see get their back, but then they get put in the crosshairs of the White House, and it creates a bunch of other challenges. We've seen some senators and congressmen joking about it, dismissing it, and sort of advocating for the idea. I mean, what is the sense of it, do you think, on the floors of Congress, of the Senate? I know the border states, it's one thing, but overall, how seriously do you think they take Donald Trump on this?
You know, it's foolish to not take Donald Trump seriously. I mean, his MO is to say something in an offhanded way that is received as just a joke or so absurd that it's not real. But then what you see happening, and this has been over and over again, is that it gets amplified. And then suddenly it gets picked up by folks in the right wing of the Republican Party and becomes a theory that people discuss. And then, of course, that's being put into the national security context. So frankly, a lot of my colleagues would like to laugh this off. But I don't think they should, because it's a perilous approach that Donald Trump is taking. And obviously, Canada is wildly insulted, rightly so. Yeah. But we in the Congress should be repudiating, all of us, any even joke by President Trump that this is worth thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, we're just as a final point, Senator, we're about to go into a national election. The current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has said, you know, he'll meet with Donald Trump at the right time, but the right time is when there's mutual respect and this 51st state stuff and the governor of Canada stuff goes away. I can't imagine any other political leader would meet with the president without similar conditions being met. Just as a final point, I mean, you can't get any sign that we can get to this point, or is it just going to be sort of this chilly relations between whoever our next prime minister is and the president for the foreseeable future?
Well, you know, frankly, I'm very worried about Trump and what he's doing to Canada. You know, and by the way, I want to put some responsibility on those of us in Congress. The president is invoking this tariff under emergency authority that was given decades ago to the president of the United States. But it was done at a time when the focus was on national security as in a military threat, not a trade threat or a fentanyl threat. And it was done in a time when the Congress could have confidence in the restraint of the person who was president, regardless of party. Trump is overreaching here. My view is he doesn't have the authority under that delegation to have as a pretext a pretextual reason for invoking these tariffs. And one of the things the House of Representatives did in this continuing resolution is they put in a provision that said the House of Representatives, whose authority it is to impose tariffs, could not use that authority to object to anything that Donald Trump did on tariffs. So there's some real responsibility that the Congress of the United States has to assume and not reject.
Yeah, it's an interesting political time in your country, Senator. I say with great understatement in terms of recognizing, you know, what has happened here. But look, we want to. It's great to have you back on the show, sir. That's Vermont Senator Peter Welch. Thank you, sir. It's good to speak with you.
Thank you.